All right, so you're curious about this election coming up, and sent over this interesting article on Trump's ground game, or maybe lack thereof. It's a piece by Thomas Beaumont and Joey Capoletti, published just today, September 22nd, from the Associated Press. It really makes you wonder if relying on super PACs for a ground game is a stroke of genius or a recipe for disaster.
Right.
So it's not just some political theory. We're talking about a tactic as old as campaigning itself, knocking on doors.
Yeah.
But what happens when those knocks start to sound more like whispers? Well, the article goes into how the Trump campaign is relying heavily on outside groups, especially this Elon Musk-backed PAC, to handle all that door-to-door canvassing.
Yeah, and that's what's fascinating is this classic campaign tactic is being called into question. I mean, traditionally, door knocking is the lifeblood of any campaign, especially in these tight races. It's about that direct voter contact, generating that enthusiasm and getting a feel for what's actually happening.
Exactly.
And the article points out how Republican activists in these key swing states are starting to ask, where is everybody?
Right. They're used to seeing boots on the ground, but it seems a little quiet this time around.
Yeah.
And the article really focuses on Michigan, which Trump narrowly lost in 2020, and particularly Oakland County, a key suburb of Detroit. And the Republican field director there is saying he hasn't seen any of these Musk-backed canvassers.
Wow, so that's significant because imagine you're a Republican activist in Michigan gearing up for this crucial election. You're expecting to see this surge of support, canvassers all over. But instead, there's this eerie silence.
Right.
And, the Trump team claims to have thousands of these paid canvassers, many of them funded by this Musk PAC. But if they're nowhere to be found in such a crucial area of a must-win state, it makes you wonder what's really going on here.
Yeah. Is this just a hiccup or something more? Are we about to see a major campaign strategy backfire? Let's dig a little deeper and see if we can unpack this mystery. Okay, so we've got these potentially missing canvassers, but the plot thickens when you look at the money trail. The article says this Musk-backed PAC has poured over $14 million into canvassing firms since like mid-August.
Seriously?
Yeah, $14 million.
So where are the foot soldiers in this whole ground game? I mean, are they just lost on the campaign trail?
Right, or is there something else going on?
Yeah.
And this is where understanding the bigger picture of campaign finance really comes in. Because there have been some changes recently, to FEC rules, and now campaigns and these super PACs can work a lot more closely together.
Right.
So this outsourcing of the ground game could be a direct result of those changes. So Trump could be using this Musk PAC as his go-to to get all those boots on the ground.
Right, just get it done.
Yeah, at least on paper. But, as we're seeing, there might be some differences between the plan and what's actually happening.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And it's interesting because while outsourcing seems like a smart move, like logistically.
Yeah.
Handing over something as vital as your ground game to a super PAC, well, it comes with risks.
It does.
You've got potential logistical nightmares, concerns about conflicts of interest, and then there's that whole issue of accountability. Who's really in control here, and are they making the right calls?
Exactly.
And the article even points out a pretty glaring red flag. Apparently, this Musk-backed PAC just recently parted ways with a Nevada-based canvassing company after giving them almost $3 million.
Wait, they fired a canvassing company after giving them that much money?
Yeah, after giving them that much money.
Well, that's interesting.
So it raises questions, right?
It does.
Was there a disagreement about strategy? Did the company just not deliver? Or is there something else going on that we don't know about?
Yeah, like what's really going on beneath the surface?
Right, because it could reveal a lot about how this operation is being managed or mismanaged.
Yeah.
It's almost like a political thriller.
It is.
We've got these potentially vanishing canvassers, millions of dollars maybe unaccounted for, and a super high-stakes election. What does it all mean?
Well, it could point to a few things. Maybe some internal issues within these PACs that we're just not seeing, or maybe some last-minute changes in strategy as the campaign, adjusts to what's happening.
Right.
But it could also be something more strategic, right? Like trying to hide where the money's actually going.
Yeah, and that's why transparency in campaign finance is so important.
Oh, absolutely. Especially these days.
And this whole thing with Trump's ground game reminds me of something else from the article, Ron DeSantis' campaign. They mentioned that this isn't the first time a campaign has gone all in on super PACs for their ground game. DeSantis tried a similar approach, in his presidential run.
Yeah, and what's interesting is that strategy basically backfired on him. He handed over the reins of his ground game to the super PAC, and it caused a ton of problems, coordination issues, constant questions about conflicts of interest.
Right. And I think this just shows how important the human element still is in campaigns. We're in the age of social media and big data.
Yeah.
You know, campaigns can use all this tech to really target voters online.
Mm.
But this whole thing with the missing canvassers just reminds us that even with all those fancy algorithms, there's still no replacement for that personal touch.
Exactly.
You know that saying, you can't automate a handshake.
Mhm.
That face-to-face interaction, that genuine connection, it can make or break a campaign.
Especially a tight race like this one.
Exactly.
Oh.
So for our listeners out there who are trying to understand this election, what should they be paying attention to? What really
Right.
matters here?
I think the biggest takeaway is don't underestimate that direct voter contact. Even in the digital age, knocking on doors, those conversations, it still matters.
Right.
And while we don't know exactly what's happening with these ghost knockers, the lack of a visible ground game from Trump, especially in these swing states, well, could be a really big problem for his campaign.
So pay attention to the local news, those stories coming out of the swing states. Listen to the voters, what they're seeing and what they're not seeing.
Yeah, because those firsthand accounts tell you a lot more than any poll or data ever could.
Exactly. And don't forget to follow the money. Campaign spending reports, those can be really revealing.
They can tell you a lot about a campaign's priorities.
Yeah. And sometimes those financial disclosures, well, they reveal more than anyone intended.
Mm.
It's like we're doing our own detective work here, trying to piece together this election one clue at a time.
That's what makes it so fascinating.
This is going to be a close one.
It is.
We're all in for a wild ride.
Absolutely.
And remember, knowledge is power. The more you know, the better equipped you'll be to handle all the twists and turns of this election. So stay curious, keep asking questions, and don't be afraid to dig a little deeper. Until next time.